Good evening. This is the Elliott Wave Daily Update for the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100 for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Well, I'm hoping everybody had a really great Labor Day weekend. Came back all kind of maybe a little bit refreshed, had a couple of days off. And then everything started to break loose. Now, needless to say, the S&P closed down just over 2%, 2.1% today. And that we've not seen this type of harder selling since, like I've been talking about, those August 5th lows. Into that period, we saw some pretty strong get out of the pool type selling. So what was up? What's kind of going on? And how does this fit technically? So again, I want to state that I'm a technical analyst, so I don't really try to put in more fundamental things on a macro basis type stuff into what I'm looking at. I try to keep it very technical. And so, like discussing that the S&P dropped 2.1%, and really kind of what was going on inside is that what got smacked really hard is that the tech, NASI, and then within it, AI and chips. And so what really gave a lot of a, hey, smack in the jaw is the fact that NVIDIA dropped, well, it was heading towards 10%, dropped 9% today, 9%. In one day. So that type of hard selling, regardless of what was behind it. I mean, I'd heard from someone in the trade room that they were talking about that NVIDIA was doing a buyback. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try to go grab some cheap money. I don't know. But in any case, sell the stock. It's like, first of all, you create all these additional shares, and then you decide you're going to buy them back. Okay, I'm not sure what price or whatever the deal is, or even if it was, I didn't investigate it, so I probably shouldn't talk about it. But anyway, NVIDIA 108 closed. And right now, I'm looking at my chart or looking at my watch screen, and it's 105.93 bid at 106. So it's down another $2 as we get ready to get in. Now, let's step a little bit one thing further. That we have the S&P, we have the Nasdaq, we have the Qs, we got the spiders, but then we have another ETF that is specifically for semis, and that is the SMH. They took a whooping. They took a whooping today. The SMH was down 5.5% today. And I do follow the SMH. And looking here, I got to go out now because I thought that I had, I have labeled it. Let me go out of that one, go down to just the daily, and then pull it back up. That this was the completion point for a minute 3, I'm calling it. I don't know if I got to boost this up a little bit. And then that this is likely A, B, and we're coming down into C. I really wouldn't count this anymore because it's how severe this drop was. So, but technically, I'd have to think that it is really kind of, let's just do a simple, and we got the wrong one up. Hold on just one quick second while I do this. I'm going to put in a fib that will give an indication if indeed this is A, B, and we're dropping in a C wave. Well, minimally 202 if it is. But more likely, C has to equal A, and that's at 170. Well, that's beyond the fourth wave. And what else could it be? Then we got to start taking it up and realizing that we might be in a higher degree. This could be minor. And so that this is a minor 4. And then that still would point to here, or we'd have to go back out. So we'd have to up this. This would be the minute degree. And we already know that we've come down to the minute degree. If we're returning back to the minute degree, then we're coming here. That part of Elliott would fall out, but it could be something else. So again, all I want to look at is this. If this is ABC4, and we're going to say this is 1 and this is a 2, the 2 cannot. And that was a pretty hard sell. But I cannot discount that it maybe was. And I'm going to show you that it's come down almost to 618. Second waves can do that and then do an absolute turnaround. So this is my point. I'm going to show you, it's like, this is what happened and this is what they're attributing to it, and on a technical basis. I am going to remove that one because we're just looking at this. So back to the facts. So 10% of the S&P is based in semiconductors, and another 10 to 15% is semis to artificial intelligence. So this is a big part of SMH. So NVIDIA alone today was about 65 to 70 points dragging down on the SMH. Oh no, excuse me, on the S&P and the Nasdaq. That's a lot. Now, if this continues, then technically, what could we be in? We could be in a larger 4 or a larger decline coming down. And if this is going to be an ABC, even on SMH, we would be looking for it to come down to 170. Now, that's if it's a much larger, i.e., last August type of a drop. Now I got to go back, so I'm going to leave it here. So we're going to look at it because and I'm looking at these things when so if we're looking at the 10% of the semis, which is the SMH, is in control of what happens really in the S&P and of course then in the Nasdaq. And we can see how big it has become and how big of a chunk it contributes to movement. So therefore, I think that I definitely have to assume that there's a very high likelihood that the market will get down to 202. So is this just a day one? Like we should come down, we rally, and then pop, boom, we smack. Now, I think technically what also happened was on Friday's expiration, a lot of things expired. So things began to get, you get a little bit of a thrust, a little boost, a little things from that type of release. And so volatility being one. So we saw volatility, do a little uptick. And getting back, just kind of trying to figure out what is kind of doing this. In these indexes, so in the S&P, in the Nasdaq, in the SMH, and the ETFs, this is seemingly, they got hit a lot harder. That if you were to be able to even look at something like the S&P on an equally weighted basis. So we have to consider, it's like, what's controlling the narrative, what's controlling the move, and again, semiconductors, again, artificial intelligence and semiconductors combined through NVIDIA. So when I want to translate that over into an Elliott move, it does keep both of exactly what we're going through in place. Let me begin with the S&P. So this is kind of interesting to try. No, I didn't mean that. I meant yes. I'm going to be here on the daily. We have been working together, two views that all rotate around what is this and what is this. And I have to be honest with you, both actually remain in place. Technically, I'm talking technically, and yep, I am paying attention to technically how strong that sell-off was today. And even if I go take a peek, they've taken away most of that. I'm going to be looking at NVIDIA stock, 473 million shares, and they're still tacking it on. Okay, so a lot of stock trading. Apple, close to 50 million. We see these reversals, and they were tight. I mean, Apple reached 229 and ends up closing at 221 or 222, trading lower still. So taking that, putting it into the chart, what could be going on? Well, if it's going to stop right here, realize come in tomorrow, and they're going to start to buy it all back, well, then I can concentrate, I can say that it has the potential. Now, that's the drop. It looks pretty ugly on a 4-hour chart, but there's support, 5,500. And we already know that 5,500 remains an important level in our friends, the SPX and the ES. 5,500 now. We kind of went through 5,600, right? We went through that one pretty quick. And so we're going to get ready to close in possibly at 5,550. That's number 2 for Gamma. And 5,550 has now been taken out. It brings us down to that 5,500 level. And there again, we have another 5,513 here in the S&P, 5,500 in the SPX. And these are levels that are going to remain very important and also give us clues. So the purpose of why I'm bringing this all up now and sharing it is because 5,500, a break there shifts this narrative over to it's not. It'll be the larger C wave coming down. So here's the skinny on all of this. Right now, if I'm going to leave that 4 there, it needs to kind of contain itself here, turn, put this 4 in, and then turn higher. Technically, that's what the market would need to do to leave that as a 4 and indicate that we're going back up again. We all have been here. We've all been through this. We understand to say, no, the market will never do that is pointless. Is it possible? Yes. What has to happen? You tell me. I don't control the purse strings of the buyers or the sellers or the options and how they want to trade. Combine them all together and we get a move. But so if this though is A of minor 4 and this is B of minor 4, however we want to put it, and we're kind of coming off in now a C wave coming down. Right? So the B wave is up here, whether it's here or whether it's here, don't know. Likely here, and somehow this is ugly as all hell. And we would just be starting on a C wave coming down. And we could take it even lower, of course. We look at the 1-hour chart and we open it up to see, well, it's 1, 2, 3. And then we see A, B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that a 5? Maybe. Right? ABC A, ABC B, big C. So that being the high, this could be ABC at a 4. And that's on the hourly chart. If I break it down further, we'll see how deep this all can go. Now, technically, market's got to tell me. So right now, there is that possibility that this low, or maybe a little bit more, right? If we need to put in a little bit additional downside, because you can tell that they're marking it down. And we're now open and not bad. It's actually just down 825. So it's not bad. You see, it opens up nicely higher a little bit. So to keep it alive, if that's going to be the marker for 4, we have additional support to bring a C wave down and to put in this 4, and that would end up at 54.99, 5,500. We got close. So far, so good. Remember here, in the S&P, it's 55.13. And we got real close. We got to 17 this afternoon. And if we start breaking that, that really could drop it. Now, if that should happen, if this all is just like, whew, we almost got closer, now we're just going to step in and buy it, fine. If it does not, and we start to sell off hard again, well, then it changes that picture back towards it being A, B, and this is the C wave, and now we're coming, and a B wave goes up there, and now we're coming down. In 5, we'll end up coming down in 5, but we will end up back at this August 5th low or further. Pretty flat in terms that would be an A, B, C, pretty much flat. I mean, we've got, this is 57.21, and this would be 56.25. So you're talking about 50 points, let's say, that we would add here, and that would bring us down to a 50.70. So still above 5,000 in the ES. And that would bring, and then the minor 4 would come over here, and the market would be expected to rally all over again. So on a technical basis, when I'm adding in the flows, sure, the market makes their adjustments and they go down, and it's a lot of buying and selling, and you see the money moving around, you know, going in from this option to that option, from this stock to that stock. I mean, they're saying, NVIDIA, you're doing a buyback? Sure, okay, let's get out of NVIDIA. And they'll go put it somewhere else because you have to, you're rotating money, so you have to put it somewhere. So there's that going on too. Now, if it continues to break down, then I just told you, we come in here. If it stops here, then I'm going to rerun the fibs for wave 5. Because obviously what I had got smashed through. So and then if we continue, then we literally can start to do 54.80, and basically could come down to 54.23, but then you're walking yourself into, again, another conversation about the feel and look decision, that this whole thing would be a 4, coming all the way down to here and then rally, against this being the 2. This is 1 and ABC 2. So it's like, I don't know. But the market would. So that's a possibility, and you have to leave that up there. You must consider it. Now, I'm not saying what the market is or isn't going to do. I'm telling you what the technical possibilities are. And if it were to hold and we started to run back up, it should go pretty quick. It should go up almost as fast as it kind of came down. Now, what we'll find out real quick, because what I'm adding again to the outside of all this conversation, are we starting to see the turn from risk on to risk off? And if we're seeing that, then the selling is going to continue, and rallies will be minute, let's say. They'll be small. They'll be overtaken by the sellers. Now, as a trader, and you're standing in the market and you're working a smaller account and you short a future and suddenly it turns and goes up 20 or 30 points, it could ruin your day. It's a big enough move to ruin your day. So trade smart. You know, so we're not really trying to determine, is it going bullish, is it bullish or bearish? Keep the technicals. Keep the technicals running at all time. 50%, like in other words, the market dropped, is doing a 50% retracement. You can already see real quick, okay, you bought it up, you're up 8. Okay, great, you're down 30. So the sellers are still there. That we can see. Technically, we can trade it. But we just have to kind of keep it in that technical aspect. And when levels break, not question, just do. That's what the algorithm's doing. So that's why we're trying to give all these levels. That's why I'm trying to give you the little bits and pieces that go with it to show if it's going to be sincere. Is this really going to start to drop? What is a strong sell? That you're going to see. And these levels that I give in the trade room, I'm sorry to say, because that was the deal. If the levels that I give in the trade room, when those start to get broken, you see the result. You see the result. 5,600 was a level. and it broke way up here. And when it did, it was in the middle of a cell. And the upper ones that broke were even, yeah, more obvious. And it just started to go. So then these pullbacks, any pullbacks within this, again, you're on a 4-hour chart. I come down to the 15-minute chart, which just disappeared. There it is. And you can see there were like sideways, but some of these 15-minute moves, you're going to have to sit out or add to. And sometimes you can't dollar cost average. So, we went from a low at 55.73 to a high at 55.89. Not as bad in the S&P, but don't forget, it's 12.50 a tick. It's $50 a point. So if it's moving from 73 to 89, that's 16 points times 50. Now, if you can handle it, boy, then you got your play. It came through well. But these can be very powerful, and anything that gets in its way gets mulled over. These are algorithms at work. All right, so having now said all of that, let's trade smart. For tomorrow, we're going to be paying very close attention to the 5,500 level. If this breaks substantially overnight and hangs out below, then you can feel pretty confident that Michael's going to walk in and call it A, B, and this is 1 of C, 2 of C, 3 of C, 4 of C, 5 of C. Or that, somehow I will get this moved. Right now it could be an ABC 4. No, that would change. It still could be a C wave, but it's a much bigger C wave. And it's not a part of, this B wave is not going to come over to here. The B wave would come over to here. And then this would be wave 1 of C, 2 of C, 3 of C, 4 of C, 5 of C. We're going to end up down here, back. Oh, sorry, let me go back over here. We're going to end up back below here. If the selling gets intense again, let me open it up. That's what we're dropping. That's the comparison that's being made today. That this is beginning to look like this. This started pretty much the same. Follow through. That was a little choppy. These are 4-hour, a little choppy, but still very biased. And then you get the bigger ones. Then you get the bigger ones. You want to hang. You want to stay alive to catch the bigger ones. That's all I'm going to say. You want to catch the bigger ones. So you trade smart. You stay out of chop, and you catch these moves. Both ways, by the way. Both ways. When there was time to go up, these were great. As were these. All right. Now, moving averages. Well, here we have the 4-hour. Well, let's go up to the daily because that's the one that that's kind of the standard. They want to go look at that one. So turning. So also stops here and goes up with the same intensity as it just came down. Okay. But bearish engulfing. Look how much it took in, all of it. Still, technically, could be ABC 4. Boom, 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 boom. And don't forget, that would then suggest above 57.21 and on up between 57 and 58. That big then jumps back in the picture. All right, moving averages, flat, it's turning. All right, let's go look at the Nasdaq. Nasdaq initially did not get smacked as hard. Then it did. Then suddenly it was like down 150, then it was down 400. So pretty kind of interesting. And they're continuing to go smack. All right, so let's start on the 4-hour chart. That's where I was. Let's open that and get a look at what's inside. So what I've left up there is something that I need to take off. Sorry, I think I'm going to do this. And this, actually, I'm leaving on. So if we're still kind of doing an A, B, and this is a C, it could work. Here is the level that it can, that would be 618. It has already basically come down and it's at just above. What's that low? That low is 18,911. And this low at 50% is 18,883. So, but the close is 18,000. Oh, yeah. Okay. So that still remains in place. It still could be a 4. And then this remains minor 4. Technically, still possible. Nasdaq took a beating because we saw it happen in NVIDIA. Then we saw that Microsoft. Then we saw Meta. We saw everything that has been quote unquote overvalued. Just kind of, you guys are just going up a little bit too fast, too soon, too much, whatever you want to say. That technically you were overbought. Now we're slipping and falling, at least index-wise, on a 4-hour chart, a little bit oversold. We can get much deeper as we did on the 5th. But if we're at the beginning, this was on the 1st. So this is actually our first trading day in September. So here we go. Are we going to do the same thing? Well, if it is indeed still a part of the minor 4, yes, we're going to do the same thing. And that again then takes the overall conversation from a positive gamma to a negative gamma. And that's the measurements I'm now looking for to see where are we in that. The selling was intense. As it got intenser, that's when the narrative shifted. That's when it became a negative gamma. Then the market had a really tough time catching a bid. Now you get what I mean. If the market, if we're in a negative gamma situation, the market has a hard time catching a bid. And that's the only way you're going to turn it around. And it can't. So the pressure remains to be a seller. The pressure remains on the gamma, just kind of like exploding in traders' faces. And that keeps the pressure on the sell side, technically speaking. All right. So it is the same deal in the Nasdaq as it is in the S&P. We know that SMH has a pretty strong hold over the Nasdaq as well. And we know that the Nasdaq has gotten a little punch in the face because NVIDIA did give it up today. And for whatever NVIDIA's reason was, it did give it up. And still is below the regular close at 108 right now. They're bringing it back up. It traded down into the 105 handle, and it's back above 106. But we see. It's a long afternoon and night. We shall see. Now, again, if it stops here, then I'm going to place that 4 up there. If it stops and it builds a 5-wave up, let me put the whole sentence together. Sorry, that was even to me. Then I put the 4 here and take this off and run that to that, and then we're on the go again. But at least we'll have a clearer idea that of where this 4 finally does end. If not, and this 4 is still in play, and we're going to come flying through this. Now, that's the other part, that the Nasdaq sometimes can be a little bit cleaner in giving you that, nope, we're going to break down, than the S&P does. And it's the difference between 100 tech stocks, quote unquote, because I know there's some other ones that aren't, that sit in the Nasdaq. But basically, it's a technology, and also now artificial intelligence and et cetera. So it has its warts, so to speak. So again, if we got to move that minor 4 and we got to move it over, then we know that we're looking at 17,351 or 17,350. That's the area. And I know that we can get just below that, 16,888, I believe it is, something in that area. I'll put it back on, but right now we don't know, and I don't want to clutter up the chart. But tomorrow, we're obviously keeping a very close eye on the levels, on the flows, to see, first of all, to give us direction. Second of all, to give us, it's like, if you're going to give us direction, what are we going to do? Are we just recovering a little bit because we all got pounded pretty hard? Or are we actually turning and now going to move back up as if we have finished this fourth wave? That'll be the question. A continued slide lower shifts the narrative that we're likely going to come back down to here, the August 5th low, which you're now hearing being thrown back in. But you and I had been talking about it for at least over the weekend, if not longer. The two counts running side by side. We're getting a little bit closer in terms of, okay, market, tell me direction. And it is, but then it does what it does. So if they had maybe a little bit more time, we would have broken down even further. But we are. Okay. Moving averages, we've already gone over. They're not all that horrendous, except we have on the 4-hour chart, the 20 has broken the 50. Daily. Oh, it's sitting right on top of, and I don't know, I think maybe it has broken, at least the 13 has. Like, see? And see what happened when they all kind of came in and did it? Ah, get out of the pool. That's always been my point. Now, when you get that strong of a signal from your moving averages, you got to go with them. The technical side tells you don't question it because there's a whole bunch coming behind. Now, without having to know the why. You know, what's going down? Everything. You know, again, it's kind of one of those deals where it's like, well, except bonds did not go down. But gold did, platinum did, Bitcoin did, the dollar went up, and the bonds, the futures went up. But still, it felt for a while like it was a Billy Graham decline. And not that everything, but nearly everything was kind of moving with it. So we'll see about tomorrow. And again, if it breaks, I will run some additional fibs, but if you need those fibs, then all you need to do is connect this. You go from there to here to get the C wave. All right, that's going to be it. The next update. Oh yeah, tomorrow. Don't forget Wednesday. What numbers are coming out? Wednesday, we have the U.S. trade deficit. We have job openings, factory orders, Fed Beige book. So 8:30 a.m. U.S. trade deficit, 10 a.m. job openings and factory orders. Job openings are going to be an important one. Okay, that one is going to do a shift and could cause a shudder. If it's worse, if it's better, it's how the market wants to interpret it, but it should cause a ripple of some kind. And then factory orders at 10 a.m. Could. We'll see. All right, next update, Wednesday, September the 4th.